All right. They are very interested in that food. Okay. Hi guys, welcome. Thanks for coming. Uh, Multicast community group. This is the W3C meeting. Be using those rules. Um, Let me paste the notes in the notes link in the chat. In case anyone wants to look, follow along, add edits. I'm kind of thinking this will be pretty short, but obviously discussion is welcome, and anyone should make comments if they want.
Okay, I'll just take some notes in the document
Perfect, thank you.
today. No worries.
Oh, and actually, Enrique said he would be about 15 minutes late. So, given we're already 7 minutes late, we'll see him soon, I guess. Okay, so mostly I just wanted to give a brief update on our status.
Sorry to interrupt.
Mhm.
The document's read-only at the moment, I think.
Sorry. Let me
Is that
share. Yeah, that is not intentional. Certainly, I want you to have edit access. Thank you for raising that. Meant to do that. Missed it. All right. That should work. You can.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so as I said in the update. Oh, hey Dom. Great. Dom's joining us too. Let's see. As I said in the update, we've continued to work on the quick multicast spec and implementation in our, I don't know, I guess you'd call it task force that's been meeting weekly to do the implementation experiments. I think that's going well. I'm not, as usual, I'm not as far along as I wish we were, but or we're not quite as far along as I wish we were. But I think we've continued to make good progress, and with the looming deadline of IETF coming up, then I'm sure we'll start things will start moving faster. At least on my side, that's quite likely. I think I've cleared off most of my conflicts for the upcoming couple of weeks, so I'm hoping I'll be able to make some decent progress, better than I have been. Lately, it's been a lot about spec work, and I've not managed to do as much coding that's checked in or anything. But I think we've gotten some good work out of Kyle and Leo and Max, so that's really good. And Enrique has started looking at it as well. He's trying to get a build up, I believe, and has done some work toward making it a little more approachable for more people to start with it. He's working on a Docker container sort of setup for it, I think. But mostly, the overall goal is to try and get a demo running. But I mean, the overall goal is not that. The overall goal is to end up with something deployable, really. But an intermediate step that we'd like to have to generate extra interest at this upcoming IETF is to get a demo running that can actually do some transport using multicast. So and I think there's a good chance we'll get there. There was a problem brought up last time on the technical side for how to integrate with web transport that we realized with the comment from Dave Shinazi that there's a workaround for, at least for streams, though not for datagrams. And so we'll probably, the first pass will focus on that. But it's my intent to get traffic actually running to a web transport session if possible inside a browser. So that's what I'm aiming to achieve for this pass. We'll see if it gets there. Um, we might have something short of that. We'll see. Um, but I think it's that's sort of the goal we're trying to achieve there. Um, let's see. In terms of so the other thing we were talking about a use cases document, um, and I got one positive response, but not actually any paragraphs filled out for that document yet. From Eric Hurst, who's been here before. Didn't show up this time, it looks like, but he said he'll be giving me a paragraph that I can use as a starting point for describing what it would mean to them to have multicast to the browser. And I was going to try and use that to reach out to some more people and get collect, evidence of interest. So that I still want to do.
Happy to help with that. Happy to help with that, Jake, if you want.
That'd be fantastic, Dom. If you want to write one also.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So I had a list of about 8 companies that I was going to reach out to, and Eric was here last time, and I asked him if that would be okay. He said yes, but I haven't really followed up. And yeah, Dom, you're on the list too, so absolutely, if you want to.
I was talking to a telco today here in the UK that was really heads down on multicast for network efficiency at the moment. So I think it'd be quite good to maybe engage them as well.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. It's a recurring theme. Everybody who does the math figures out that this is actually one of the best bets for getting scalability, but it's hard to get people to really believe that it's possible. But people keep trying. So let's see. Any questions, I guess, or anything we should cover that goes deeper or beyond that?
I had a question about, after reading the draft you have for multicast over quick about the transport setup. I can ask again on the mailing list, but I figured it might be a little bit easier on the phone first. And
Sure.
it has to do with the setup of the tunnel where, if I understood correctly, it uses an S comma G to create the tunnel, and then I think for that reason, you can only have one multicast flow per quick tunnel, rather than having one tunnel with multiple S comma Gs that could potentially go through it. And I wasn't sure, and I'm not a quick expert, I wasn't sure if that's just some technical constraint or if it's just, the kind of most cases there would only be one multicast session that you really want to set up anyway. And I wasn't sure if there would be any scale issues if, let's say for like some IPTV kind of head-end device inside a home, they wanted to join 100 multicast streams, if having a quick tunnel per multicast stream would impact anything negatively. And yeah, I don't know how far this goes back to like just the structure of how it was done originally at unicast, but just curious if there is a reason for it or if there is availability for flexibility with that, maybe in a later version or something like that after we get this working.
Yeah. So there's not any such restriction, I think. By tunnel, I think you mean the unicast connection. Um, if I'm remembering right, or I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one you mean by tunnel. I think I put in tunnel a mention of tunneling UDP datagrams over like quick datagrams in like the app in the operations section, but for the most part, the quick spec doesn't talk about tunnels, although it does have a connection anchoring all the channels that are associated with it.
Thinking of the connection anchoring, like I'm in the network,
Okay.
so I think of tunnel, so I may be
I see.
a word. It was in section 2, I believe, kind of the general setup. I'm trying to see if there's a link handy in your email, or I can just pull it up and double check real quick.
Yeah. I'll put a link in. if I can drive my browser. Okay, so let's. So I don't know if you're on the latest editor's version, but let's take a look at the text real quick. So there's the. Can you get the chat?
Yeah, I just pulled it up.
Okay. So the multicast channel. Okay, so maybe the spec should make this more clear. There can be multiple multicast channels that are used by a single connection. Is that the first question you're asking? Like there seems to be only one?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the exact text. I'm pretty sure it's in section 2. Yeah, I think it was this paragraph, each quick multicast channel has exactly one associated as common G. So maybe I'm thinking that is just that's the channel, but you can have multiple for like a quick connection or something like that.
Yeah, so there's you in a single quick connection, you can describe multiple different channels, and each channel represents one SG.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, sure, we should, if that was a confusing point, then we should make sure to clarify that. I don't want people taking away the wrong idea there. Thanks.
Yeah, and I started like going to section 3 and see if I could get a better understanding about, like what's set up and then what can go over it. So, again, but people who are more familiar with Quick probably wouldn't have tripped up on that one, but I just wanted clarity on it. And it makes sense the way you're explaining it now. So, yeah,
Okay.
I think I get it. So that makes sense to me. You have, the one, the transport, and then you can have multiple channels. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad to clear that up. Yeah, so I guess another point that confused somebody that maybe we should add some text for was that channel packets are always interpreted in the context of a connection. So that's when they carry a stream data, then that stream data is a stream that's in the connection. Another subtle point there is that the data in streams is not necessarily the same for all connections between any given clients and servers, even if they use it's only the stream data at specific offsets of the stream that would be identical and that would be carried on the multicast connection. But you can, I feel like that's a point that confuses people too. That streams themselves don't have to necessarily be entirely identical in their contents, but stream data that's carried over between different clients, but stream data that's carried over channels has to be identical. So it just means that some of the stream data has to be carried over a unicast connection or over a different connection, a different transport, I should say. Anyway, yeah, I'm sure we'll have ongoing clarifications as this spec matures, assuming it gets a chance to mature rather than being, killed by quick people if they can come up with a kind of security problem. But I don't think we have any security problems that I know of that weren't addressed in the security consideration stock. So we'll see how that holds up once they really dig into it. All right, thanks for the question, Chris. Anything else we should go over or any other questions people had? In the initial implementation, I'm just going to go ahead and make it transparent. There won't be a web API component, I think, that we'll be adding, even though later on we may add a web API component that would like allow the page to disable it or enable it or something. But we'll get to that later. And I'm hopeful that it will be, relatively trivial, like a very small extension that doesn't do very much. Let's see. There's like the potential that we would want to still make that server-side chosen session ID at some point, but that also can be deferred, I think, for quite a while, because we can just do all the data transport over streams instead. All right, so I think we're probably gonna wrap up early then today if nobody has anything else to add. Dom, I realized I regretted this in Eric's case. Can I ask you for like, how long should I give you before I ask you for it again? Like, should I just set an alarm for next week?
Oh no, that's fine. I was actually just looking at the beer one I did a while ago, and I think it's probably overkill. It's very long. I think you probably just need a couple of paragraphs, really, unless
Yeah.
you're thinking something deeper.
No, I mean, content and emphasis first, however long it needs to be, but I was looking for something, digestible. I'm thinking like, yeah, a paragraph or two, probably on the order of somewhere between 200 and 500 words.
Cool, perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not a whole lot.
I'll get that done tomorrow.
Tomorrow, fantastic. Thank you. I will look for it. Let's see. I guess, Chris, do you have any updates about, so Dom, you mentioned you talked to an ISP, and Chris, I don't know, I guess, yeah, on the ISP front, does anybody have any comments about interest in multicast developments, things that have been going on?
So I did talk to one content provider, actually Amazon and Amazon Prime, but more of a European contact, and he said something kind of interesting where in Europe they're focused on multicast more than the United States. In the United States, at least for now, they're still looking at leveraging CDN, and in Europe they're actually very high in multicast, and at least around North America, it's like Thursday night football, NFL, that's kind of the popular thing. But then, they mentioned, well, in Europe, they have that multiple times every night with, Premier League and other sports and things like that. So it seems like there's more of the interest there, and a lot of ISPs apparently are using multicast for TV delivery. So it aligns a little bit better. That being said, in at least the United States for Verizon, at least I'm definitely interested in multicast and exploring multicast technologies, hence this call. And I know that there is interest to do multicast as well, but I think given just kind of the unicast-centric nature of a lot of TV delivery right now, especially streaming, it's more of a second step beyond just getting something deployed. So I definitely see there's interest. To kind of answer your question simply, I think it's just a matter of continuing to socialize and getting more people involved to give their perspective and their priorities.
Okay, yeah, thanks. That matches what I've seen.
This telco, this operator, it's an operator network that is a full stack operator. So they've done everything from rights acquisition through to set-top boxes at various times in their sort of last 10, 15 years. And I was talking to one of their sort of architecture guys, and he just commented today in an email. We were actually talking about greening and streaming, so sort of sustainability strategies and energy reduction in the delivery cycle, and he mentioned multicast as the third sort of priority after codecs and better collaboration with content providers. but use of multicast to multicast ABR to reduce unicast consumption of linear was specifically what he said. So yeah, there is definitely a real interest out there in the operators. They are getting to a point where I think there is more on the old broadcast networks. And the scale, you mentioned, being more active over here in Europe, I think that is true. The legacy PTTs are very defined, quite large footprints, and they've gone through cycles of doing their IPTV networks, and it's all a bit much for them. They'd rather just make the OTT stuff efficient and let someone else worry about the content, I think. That's my gut feel. So.
I agree with that. I think that in North America as well, where I've deployed multicast on large networks. So I mean, I know it can be done, and I know that it's not like CDN where it just works. But I think there's a bit of a hurdle. I'm sure when CDNs were first deployed, people were kind of curious about how are we going to deploy these servers and get the traffic to talk to each other. And Jake, you probably have a better perspective on that, but it may just be one of those learning curves where once more people see it's doable, then it'll move a little bit quicker. And then one thing you mentioned, do you say energy savings as one of the points of increasing efficiency, like fewer servers or something like that with a smaller CDN?
Yeah. It's a complete sidetrack for today's chat, but yeah, no, I started up a project about a year ago called greeningofstreaming.org as a fun conversation, and it's just exploded around me. Everybody wants to innovate around energy efficiency, which is quite interesting in the streaming sector because everyone was splitting hairs on latency, and it was becoming a very boring sell. And everyone's suddenly trying to do the same latency, same quality picture, but with half the energy, which is kind of a noble thing to be doing, but. It's soaking my time at the moment.
Because if you look at building CDN deployments for just a spike in traffic, I mean, that's servers that may even be sitting idle, but they're still using energy, and there's even the of having to build out the power for those servers even if they're idle. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been getting Akamai, a very big sort of participant. We've been getting measurements right out across CDNs and looking at energy profiles alongside traffic profiles around live events and things. And it's all very interesting looking at how little the traffic actually affects the power, which is something that we, in the world of NFV and orchestration and SDN, we should be dab hands at winding our systems down when we're not using them, but we're not. So anyway, it's a total sidetrack.
I don't think that's off topic. The greening conversation is one of the key drivers for multicast, I think.
Yeah, it was something I was going to bring into the use cases. It's a really important one at the moment.
Yes, there are others as well, but the green credentials actually could do with some better highlighting and better numbers around them, I think.
Yeah.
I think some of that's in the charter even for this group. Let's see ahead. What was the question I just thought of while you guys were talking? That'll probably come to me tomorrow. I almost had it. Must not be important. Okay. Great. Then anything else we should cover then? You'll be publishing some numbers. That's on streaming of greening, Dom? Is that sort of an ongoing? Is there like a?
Yeah, stick it in the chat room if you want.
That's what it was. How much you said the codex is the top priority?
For the operator, the codecs are, but they're a bit naive to the whole data. To really, one of the evolution of thinking over the last sort of 5 or 10 years that's come out of academia is that if you say you reduce your bandwidth, you can say you're greener. And actually, I put the sort of null hypothesis to the people who understood the infrastructure that I didn't think that energy would fluctuate very much as you went from 0 to 30 million viewers on a big Champions League football game and then back to 0 again. So we put some instrumentation out, and indeed the energy profile really doesn't look like the traffic profile. It's pretty flat. And so when you're provisioning all that infrastructure even before you're streaming something, it doesn't matter what your bandwidth is if you're not streaming anything at that point. And we have to account for that and understand that energy, the infrastructure growth and the infrastructure scaling around the availability of service. Data attribution is good for claiming a little bit of it and taking away your responsibility. But if you say you only use 10% of a router at half your bandwidth and call it 5% of your router's capacity, it doesn't change the 100 watts that's powering the router at all.
Gotcha.
And we need to take that systemic look at scaling the infrastructure so that, as much as possible, well, the first thing we're looking at is trying to reduce wastage and just working on availability and SLAs. The second, there's all sorts of other discussions going on around codecs and compression because that all plays into the scaling. But the big sort of obvious white elephant in the room is just making stuff available for 3 months when it's only used for 90 minutes to make sure you meet an SLA, and that's a big problem. So.
Okay. I think that makes some sense. Yeah, I mean the codecs will apply also to on-demand content. That's why I assume it's a bigger deal.
It's huge energy burn with transcoding and storage and caching and so.
Sure, but if you do it once and then you've got the right codec that's more efficient, then that could save a bunch of downstream stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, transcoding into 34 formats and 58 devices all the time, it's just extremely inefficient.
Okay. It would be interesting to get a handle on what numbers, like if we could put into the same kind of format what we can get out of multicast, then that would be
I'll connect you. I'll connect you internally as well with Mike Matera.
Okay, yeah, I'm talking to him too.
You know, Mike? Yeah, talk to Mike. He's really active with grading and streaming. He's been a champion for us. So.
All right, cool. Thank you. Okay, anything else then? I think we're in decent shape. Or as decent as we're getting today. All right. If there's nothing else, then thanks everyone for coming. Good to see you all. See you again next week. Thanks very much, Chris, for taking some notes.
Sure.
And yeah, I'll stop the feed.